Today's AskReddit post. What's the fastest you've ever quit a job and why? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. The boss of a trucking company was a complete asshole. I was a teenager and supposed to be an assistant around the shop. He had me doing ridiculous poop, like cleaning his personal pickup truck and scrubbing the disgusting bathroom with paper towels. All the while he called me a dumb Polak constantly, even though I'm not Polish. What sealed the deal is when in his office he told me to be grateful for the opportunity and that he could have me sucking his dick. I left immediately after at lunchtime about 3 hours through the day. I had to go back to grab my check the next day and he has the nerve to say what's the matter? So you don't like working for me? I'm not that bad, people have it worse. I didn't even answer, just grabbed the check and left. I later heard he got sued by a lady in finance and lost the company. I showed up for the first day ready to start a sales job. I'd been hired with some stubble, but not yet a full beard the month prior. I thought nothing of it. The beard was neatly kept and short. The hiring manager pulled me aside after the first hour of onboarding right as I started filling out the new hire paperwork. The boss started. "We have a challenge today." Oh boy, already with the corporate speak. He told me that this was a clean shaven outfit and that I was to please return home and shave. I went home, opened a beer, and sat on my porch thinking of my next move. After an hour or so, I got a text asking if I'd be back. I replied by sending a pic of the company's ad in the local paper looking for new representatives. The person in the ad had a beard. I never went back. I thought I told you to shave those sideburns. Just once. Not twice, but thrice. About 3 hours into my first shift, when I started college, I went around applying. I interviewed at one store and it went well. The manager asked what my class schedule was like and what hours I could do, and my availability was a perfect fit. My first day, after a couple hours, he gave us an updated schedule because I guess he'd fired someone and he had me scheduled during my class times. I told him that wasn't going to work and he gave some spiel about how in the real world a job comes first. He actually expected me to just stop going to class so I could cover the shifts that he'd caused to be unfilled. I said there's no way to change the schedule. He said no, and I went back to the break room and took off my store shirt, tossed it on a table, and left. I've walked out of one interview 1 minute after it began because they handed me a piece of paper detailing the job and the salary differed from the job description I had applied for. It was about 20% lower. I questioned this and they said that no, the salary they just gave me was accurate. I thanked them for their time and said I wouldn't be proceeding since you've already proven to me you will mess with my paycheck before I'm even hired. I was in an interview. They said the job was 12-hour night shifts. I applied for 8-hour day shifts. Apparently, there were no day shifts left. I said no, showed the job ad and left. I quit a temp job after less than half a day because they told me I would have to hold paychecks for employees who didn't return company property. When I told them that was illegal and showed them the law, they said I had to do it anyway, so I quit and went back on unemployment for a few more weeks until I found a real job. You should have taken the job and explicitly told them I will not commit crimes for this company and leave it at that. Someone gets fired, starts asking about their check you provided to them. Company comes back up your ass and fires you. Not only are you back on unemployment, but you have a nice little nest egg of a labor rights lawsuit. I once went to a day one orientation for an office job where they told us we had to supply a laptop, monitor and headset for their office environment. I told them it's normal for the employer to supply these devices and it should have been made clear in the interview process this was on employees. I walked out, never looked back. Week 3 of no computer. What? I'm saving up. Tar roofing. 1 week. Each day I worked I gained a ½ inch in height from the roofing tar. My boots were like 15 pounds each by Friday, and I ruined all my pants and shirts. The Hispanic guys never got a drop of tar on them or their tools. Cheers to them for knowing what to do and doing it so well. I just couldn't get the groove of it, and I wasn't cut out to be on hot roofs on the most brutal humid days of the year. Full-time job as a crew member at a new fast food franchise. The owner must have had some emotional issues because I had just started my shift at the drive-thru and was grabbing a few pastries for a customer when the owner came around the corner yelling at the top of her lungs at me in front of an entire store of customers and employees to tell me I should restock the front display. Bro, I started 3 minutes ago and it's packed in there. Chill. In that moment I handed her my name tag and that and said I quit. She yelled, so what? You're just going to quit on me? I wasn't yelling at you. And that was before I said anything about her yelling at anyone. I said yeah, you kinda were. And 3 people quit the next day. It was toxic to say the least. 2 hours. Got a job in a startup bio research lab after college because I had a lot of training and experience in certain equipment and procedures. Within an hour, saw the boss publicly humiliate someone else for reporting that they messed up a particular run. Really not a big deal. Maybe an hour gone and $10 worth of reagents at the time. You really don't want people hiding oopses from you in research studies with many and complex procedures/protocols. Then I saw that we were fast running out of a desiccating, drying agent and that we'd have to slow down or stop until more came. Boss said nah, just reuse it. Tried to object, but he jammed his finger into my chest and told me that as the FNG he owned my ass. I said okay and quit. That was nearly 20 years ago. I ended up tutoring college kids to save up for grad school. I was freshly released from incarceration back in 2007 and went to an open interview I saw advertised as I was kinda desperate to find work. Turns out it was for selling Cutco knives. I was too polite to leave once I knew I got an offer, but immediately turned it down. I was desperate, but not that desperate. Plus, who the duck wants a 6'3" tattooed ex-con with prominent facial scars showing up at their house with a duckload knives? Honestly, that might be a selling point. The tatted ex-con would know which knives are best, lol. Best Buy. Before shift even began. Got back from a summer away. Got hired at a local Best Buy. They asked when I could start, told them any day except the coming Tuesday as I had a pre-existing ticketed event which they already said was no issue in the interview. Next day get a mild schedule, a single shift. On the one Tuesday evening I was assured it'd be off. Planned to call after class, but as I walked out my phone rang. My old boss from a few years ago at a game stop offered me my old job so he wouldn't have to train someone because he was lazy. Told him I could start Wednesday, he agreed. I called Best Buy and told them to suck a dick. I remember the manager saying, "Don't be so rash. Do you really want to burn this bridge?" I said yes and hung up. Got a job at Walmart as a cart pusher. The first day out of training we experienced flash flooding. Not only did they not offer any PPE, the shift supervisor just said tough luck. I quietly walked to the back, clocked out, and never came back. I was a cart pusher for Walmart too. They were usually pretty good about letting us come inside if the weather was too bad, especially if there was lightning. And they always made sure the cooler had plenty of water if it was hot out. I did have to go out in the snow a few times and push carts by hand because the tires of the little pusher vehicle thing we had couldn't move in the snow. But other than that I enjoyed it. You guys had a cooler? WTF. Not me, but my old master sergeant from the Marines. He retired as a master sergeant who used to be a recon sniper, then instructor for a million different weapons. His first job was at a shooting range. They stuck him behind the register the first day. He said, "I have 23 years of instruction experience. Put me on the range." So they did. The first thing he witnessed was an elderly lady in her 50s shooting a .44 mag. She's holding it improperly, and it looks like she is struggling in every facet. She was shooting it because her husband got a new job where he isn't home as often. They live in a rough area, and he wants her to learn how to shoot it. He walks up to her and starts to give her instruction on how to shoot it more effectively and safely. The other instructors walk up to him, pull him to the side, and tell him that if she wants instruction, she has to pay for it. He freaks and yells, so you're gonna let her be a potential hazard to herself and others on the range because you want money? And quit on the spot. Don't blame him. Charging someone to teach them how to safely handle a gun is pretty ductimo, especially when it comes to larger calibers. All too easy to accidentally double tap. One of those environmental street canvasser jobs, where it's about donations in the name of lining investor pockets. I mean, saving planet Earth. Put on the shirt, went out and begged people for money on the street. It felt like panhandling. And I'm actually terrible for asking directly for money. I quit and didn't return after the first day. No regrets. Brooklyn 99 got it right. It's great for undercover work. I did that. In CA. Smiled at every house we visited and sold memberships for CalPerg. By the end of the summer, another leader and I were so burned out that instead of working, we'd head to this Mexican food restaurant and have margaritas. We were exhausted from smiling, but we were students. And this was over a summer. One day, KFC, the manager scooped up some fat that splattered on the ground and threw it right back into the fryer. Well, the boiling oil kills the germs and the dirt adds flavor, so is dirt an herb or a spice? Half a shift as a temp, a warehouse packing Christmas food hampers. I was feeding the packing line and had been given no instruction on how to call for more products. I guess I was just expected to know what to do. So when my pallet of crap ran out, the parking line stopped. Some jumped up team leader came striding over, calling me all the names under the sun because I'd caused the line to stop. I tried to explain I hadn't been told how to call for more products. He called me an asshole and said something along the lines of, "You don't get your poop together, you'll never work here again." I said, "Well, if that means I don't have to work with an asshole like you, then that suits me fine." I gave him my coveralls and walked out. Fucking douchebag. People like that have very low self-esteem and fragile egos. Any chance to berate someone else they jump at to try to stroke their own ego. I wish they'd all stay home, where they can stroke themselves all they want. One day, an IT support position became back, quote, "We need you to work on this software package we make in a language you don't know," because the developer left, followed by back, quote, "You are good working on electrical systems, right? We need you to do the lighting and other wiring for our trade show booth." My old employer, Royal Mail, had forgotten to send out my redundancy paperwork for me to sign. So the next morning I was sitting in my old desk, chatting with a very confused, but happy, non-ex-boss. "Your redundancy paperwork probably just got lost in the mail." 4 hours. I got a job at a propane bottling facility. I had painting experience, so they told me I was going to be working in the paint shop. The room has a hole in one wall where the empty, used tanks are coming through, suspended by hooks on this automatic rail system. They go past where I'm standing, through a paint booth, and then out through a hole on the other wall that leads straight to a kiln to bake the paint on. I'm supposed to put plastic baggies on the tank nozzles so they don't get painted, and also remove the tanks from the line if they have too much corrosion. The tanks are going by at like hundreds per minute and the room is broiling since there is a hole that leads directly to the kiln. Break time comes and the line stops. I go to leave and the guy instructing me is like, "No, break time is the only time the line stops, and it's the only time we get to clean the paint nozzles." After talking to the guy some more, he's telling me about all the bladder infections he's had because he never get a chance to use the bathroom. At lunchtime I went to my car and took off. Never even went back for my paycheck. If I were you, I would get that paycheck and give it to the guy for info. I got one of those knife salesman jobs. During the interview we were told to take notes. After the interviewer told me to stay after the group left. He told me he liked me and he was going to hire me, but that I shouldn't be on my phone during the interview, that he saw me in the Zoom camera looking down. I was taking notes the whole time. I showed him my notes and told him I quit. I could see the micromanaging in his teeth. Plus I would have never made sales in that job. Sounds like you almost got hooked into Cutco. Worked in a film/photo studio in New York City. Just did a 16-hour day. The next day I showed up 10 minutes late because a delay with the subway. As I walked in, the boss said they really need their staff to be on time, and as punishment sent me home for the day. I said I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. I wrote my "duck you bye" email on the subway back home. So I wasn't lying when I said I'll never do it again, lol. Well, you inconvenienced me in an extremely minor and non-problematic way, so I'm going to severely handicap myself for the rest of the day to teach you a lesson. My first thought too had to be a power trip or test. I quit what was a pretty simple warehouse job because there was no training. I had to keep racks stocked for people packing boxes. Cool. Easy. Where do I get the stuff from? No one would show me. So these packers are on the other side banging the racks with their ducking sticks to let me know they need protein powder, but there's no one to tell me where I can find protein powder. It was frustrating, and it wasn't the job I was hired to do. My friend and I both were hired for a different job there, but it turns out there was only one opening. I left at lunch on the first day. If the training is ass, that means the job is ass. Not me, but a girlfriend. She got a job in finance at a car dealership. She did the onboarding, went to her desk, then headed for the supply closet to get some basic supplies. As she walked past her boss's desk, he screamed, "Are you taking AF***king break already?" She just turned around, grabbed her stuff and went home. Was there about 4 hours. When I was 17, I was hired by a big clothing brand store at the time as a floor/cashier employee. A week before my first day, they called and said I get 50% off their clothing up to 10 items, and those items will be used as my uniform. I told them I wasn't interested anymore as I wasn't in a position to spend a few $100s on clothes. I worked at a pretty expensive clothing store in HS. They would do 50% off, but on days when they needed to hit sales goals they would up it to 70% off. MGMT said they wanted employees to be in the latest styles. Okay, whatever. I'll let everyone know at my HS and got their sizes. I would wait for those 70% closing shifts and load up in both men and women's clothes and then sell them for 40% off to everyone. I was making bank. More than my poopty wage with part-time hours. Free enterprise. In college I had an opportunity to work at the local movie theater in a rural college town. The owner, Frances, was known to be a gruff and rude woman. I began training concessions at the movie theater after being hired on, and it was pretty mundane. During that time, I was simultaneously offered a job as barista at a local coffee shop. The manager/chef of the cafe was also named Francis. While speaking to Chef Francis, I mentioned that I was already training at the movie theater. Being a small town where everyone knows everyone, Chef Francis proceeds to say to me, "If you're going to work for a bitch named Francis, you might as well work for me." Not only was that statement hilarious to me, I liked her vibe, plus tips were better, so I immediately quit during my next training day at the movie theater and started working at the coffee shop. Chef Francis sounds awesome. I worked at a comic book store as a part-time sales associate for approximately 2 days. My first shift I received no training and just organized pop figures, which is fair. The second day, I was working open to close. Someone came and unlocked the store for me, logged into the computer, and told me someone would be back around 1 to cover my break, and then back at close to lock up the store. Spent the entire shift alone and incredibly confused. Quit the next day. What did you expect with a username like that? There are 5 of you. They were getting a bargain. None of us were trained. I had a maintenance position and this company made me take a picture of every single task, even something as simple as sweeping the floors, and upload it to an app so they can track daily progress. Clearly they had trust issues, and I left after about 2 days of putting up with it. I dated a woman for a few months that worked in hours at a major corporation, and her entire job was implementing a similar app and designing the process around it. We split up when she couldn't understand why I cared that one of my employees was having a tough time at home, since that's not my role. I quit after half a day working at a textile plant switching out spools. I was told to remove the spool when I see the color change. I was unable to do it. My trainer kept yelling that the color changed, but I honestly thought they were joking, and it was some kind of picking on the new guy ritual. Nope. Come to find out after 20 years of existence I learned I'm actually colorblind. My husband was older than that and still hasn't been diagnosed because he's never been to an eye doctor, but he can't see the numbers in those color blobs. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.